Hello and welcome to GayFatFriend and Friends, the podcast. The podcast for Mr. Fancy Frenchman. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the first episode with Rob from the beginning.
Hi. Yeah, he summoned me from my coffin early this time.
I decided, you know what? It's time. Like, Rob should just be here the whole time. I don't need to have my little 10-minute rant at the top of every episode. Or maybe sometimes I will. Maybe I'll just be in a mood and I'll be like, Rob, I need 10 minutes to rant, and then I'll bring you back. But I figured it's going to make editing so much easier because little behind the scenes, what I usually do is I record the podcast. I have my audio track, Rob's audio track, the video, and then I build it all. We record on Sundays. I build it all on Monday, and it usually takes like 3 or 4 hours to get through it all. But now we're just going to have one track, one video, bada bing, bada boom. There's our podcast. So, hi, baby.
Hi.
Thanks for coming down on a Sunday morning to hang out with me and talk about stuff.
Sure.
How's your morning going?
Not bad.
That's good.
You know, had my coffee, played my daily New York Times games.
Yeah, we do have a really pretty good what is it? Not tradition. What routine?
Yeah,
there's the word.
That's it. Well,
see, it is a Sunday morning, so I might not have words in my head today. But yeah, we have a pretty good routine. We play Wordle, Spottle, Framed, Spangram,
Strands.
and Strands.
No, Strands is Spangram.
Strands is Spangram.
It's Wordle, Framed, Connections, Strands, and then Spottle's not officially a New York Times game, but
it's from Spotify.
But we have a good time anyway. Yeah. Well, it's funny because there was another Spotify. Songify, I think, was one of the games before where it would play like a second of a song and then 2 seconds of a song, and it was one of those of like, you either know it or you don't. Like, and at least Spottle, you have a better kind of chance. Yeah,
it's made our morning routine much longer. I mean, for those who don't know, Rob works from home, so he's in his office all day. I'm a glorified housewife, so I work from home in the living room, and every morning we do our games and text our results back and forth to each other.
Which is funny because we do our games in different order. Like,
yeah.
I go Spotify Framed Connections.
Nope.
Wordle. Spotify, Jesus. Man, and here we're talking about no edits in this podcast.
Good morning.
Woo! Yeah, I go Wordle Framed Connections.
Yes, and then Spangram.
Yeah, then Strands.
I'm never gonna name
okay.
it right. It's so stupid that they have 2 names for it. It's so dumb.
And then Spottle.
Yeah. Whereas I do. This is fascinating, y'all. Are you guys excited about this podcast? This is fascinating. But yeah, I always do Connections first because I like to get it out of the way, and then that kind of dictates my mood for the rest of the games, because if I win Connections, then I feel superior, and if I lose, I feel like a big dumb idiot. But yeah, and then I do Wordle Framed, and then Strands. I'm never going to remember. It's always going to be Spangram, and then Spotify. Spottle. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, and also I have to fire up the Xbox mobile app every day because they have like a match 3. It's Jewel or whatever. It's like a match 3 game. It's not Bejeweled. It is Jewel.
Oh.
It is not like the official.
Bejeweled,
yeah. It's a match 3 game, but like, and by doing it, you earn like sort of reward points that you can actually convert into currency over time. And I've been doing that a lot, like for months now.
Well, and you have to do it every day, right?
You don't have to, but you earn bonuses by doing it consecutively every day.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah.
But yeah, so we do still play Wordle. We have not given up.
I've gotten a number 1. Because like a while ago, my first guess was actually one of the hits.
Yeah.
Because I used to play audio because it gets most of the vowels out of the way. And so now I'm going with my other, my number 2 guess that used to be. Now that's my number 1, hoping to get another win.
And I'm playing it like the lottery. Like, I have decided that clump is my word. I checked the archives. They have never done clump, and I've done clump for like 6 months now. So I have to do clump forever as my first word, because the day I don't, that will be clump.
Well, and my first word used to be rents, but then I realized they don't do plurals. So I just flipped it around, and now my first word is stern, which I have confirmed has not been used yet. And since my other first word, audio, has been, stern's my number 1. And yeah, we're going to play it like the lottery as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I really do let it dictate my mood. Like, if I lose Connections, and I lose Wordle, and I lose like Framed, and if I lose all of them, I'm going to have a terrible day. I'm just going to feel so dumb.
It's our equivalent of the horoscope.
Yeah. And for a long time, I was sharing results just with Wordle, but I was sharing results with friends on like Instagram and stuff. But after a while, it just got like, I know that it's literally just texting results to people, but after a while, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much work. I can't do this anymore. But yeah, my Wordle is clump, and then I do shirt, and then I do Beano, and that gets 15 of America's favorite letters out of the way. And I love that Beano is an option. I don't know if it's a word outside of the dietary supplement. But
Right? That's another one of those where I'm like, I still can't believe that's okay, but hey, whatever's clever.
the best is like when I get down to like my fifth or sixth guess, and I'm like, all right, I just have to guess I have to guess words with letters to find out what this word is going to be. So I'm going to ignore my yellows and my greens and just guess totally different words. And sometimes I'll just be like, I'll just enter 5 random letters and it'll be a word. I'm like, how is that a word? I've never heard that word in my life.
Which we could see this as a way of vocabulary building if we actually looked up what that word meant or decided to use it later.
Right? Am I supposed to be learning something from this game, or do I just want that American will to win? Yeah, so it's kind of I don't know if we said this already, but it's kind of a dark and gloomy day in Seattle. It's like extra dark. It's not really raining that much, but it's very thick clouds.
Yeah, apparently it was misty this morning during the
It was
the
misty
dog
when I
walk,
walked
right?
Ruby, yeah.
Yeah.
I got moist, which I heard is a lot of people's first word.
Oh, that makes sense. Those are all common letters.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's kind of a gloomy day. I mean, it's still, I know it's very much spring, but it feels like winter still here. And it gets down to the 40s every night. And, waking up to walk a dog and it's 49 degrees outside and kind of misty. It's just like, come on, get on with it.
Oh, yeah. Every morning is a beanie and hoodie kind of walk.
Although it's supposed to be 80 degrees next week. And I'm probably going to freak out and say it's too hot. So what I'm saying is you can't please me.
I'm glad you said it, because if I said it, it might have sounded kind of mean. But yeah, it's funny. Like, as someone who, like, when we lived in LA, you got sick of the sun every day. And now that we're here, you don't like the gloom every day. It's like, we can't win.
Yeah. Can I just get a happy medium of everything I want all the time? Is that too much to ask? But yeah, when we lived in LA, I mean, when I very first moved there, first of all, I lived in LA for 15 years. When I first moved there, I hated it. I did not want to move there, but I had already done New York. So I was like, well, if I want to be in the entertainment industry, I got to move to LA. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, I hated LA, especially because I moved in October when fall was just getting beautiful in the Midwest and the East Coast. And then I moved to LA and it was still 85 degrees for 3 months. But yeah, when I first moved to LA, I hated the weather. And then I don't remember when it switched, but all of a sudden, Christmas became a warm holiday. In my memories, in my preference, what's it called? Aesthetic? Is that the word? I don't even know. But I preferred to have a warm Christmas, and it just switched. And now, but I always hated the sun. It's just, you should not have 365 sunny days. It's just wrong. But now I hear that LA is officially rainier than Seattle.
That has happened this year. Yeah, we're in, a drought, and they've had lots of rain. And yes, it's kind of funny that with us being up here, that SoCal ended up
finally
being a lot
away.
wetter.
Finally move away, move to a cloudy, rainy climate, which I, thought would be my dream. And then LA gets all the rain and the clouds.
Womp womp. And then grass is always greener, right?
Right. But yeah, so weather's going to be nice here next week. I've got a lot of outdoor things planned. I'm going to landscape and clean up.
I will likely be indoors the whole time because
that's what you do.
That's me.
You're an indoor kid.
Yeah.
Speaking of indoor kid, we've been watching a lot of TV and movies lately.
Seriously, it's been fun. Well, some of them have been fun.
We really like a subtitled foreign language production, whether it's a movie or a TV show. We watch a lot of subtitled stuff. And we recently, last night, just completed I'm still confused. Is it a Swedish show or a Danish show?
It is Danish,
okay.
I believe, because Lars von Trier is Danish, I believe.
It's called The Kingdom.
Yes.
And it's about a haunted hospital. And the first 2 seasons were in the 90s. What, 1994, 1997?
Yes.
So yeah, they're two, and each season is what, 3 episodes?
4
episodes. So yeah, the first 2 seasons were in the 90s, and then they did a Twin Peaks style reboot.
25 years later.
25 years later. So half the cast was dead.
Yeah. They did an event season, and they tried to continue the season, but they had to create a meta narrative to make sense of it all. It's fascinating.
Well, it's funny. The main character of the first 2 seasons is an old lady. Well, she passed away, sadly, after they filmed it in the 90s. So she was such a centralized main character of the show. They just made a new character who looks and sounds exactly like her, and they just incorporated her into the show, and then she just took over the storyline of what that lady would have done. Like, it's so funny. They just introduced Karen.
Yeah, they had to create a mirror for Mrs. Drusa in order to do that. And it's funny 'cause a lot of people, if anything, a lot of Americans might be semi-familiar with just like, oh wait, that was a thing, wasn't it? With this show, because apparently in the late 90s, Stephen King was he wrote the teleplay and I think produced or created an American series called Kingdom Hospital, which was, I believe, on ABC, starred Andrew McCarthy, and it got 13 episodes, and it apparently used the first 2 seasons of The Kingdom as inspiration, and the rumor is that it took some of the original concepts of the 3rd season and maybe applied them to finish out its series, because the American series went longer than the original Danish one. And so that's next on our list to watch, is to kind of see the remake and what it does differently. Yeah,
last night we finished the Danish version, and Rob, his little eBay fingers, found the American version on Australian DVD.
It is an Australian DVD. There is an American one. It's just really hard to find. Yeah. So yeah, the Australian one was much more plentiful online to get. So now we get to watch Kingdom Hospital, and because I'm really curious, as like a network TV show, what kind of punches it has to pull and kind of where it'll go.
Well, especially American network TV, because I'm assuming it was on Danish network TV over there and in the 90s, but they could show full nudity, they could cuss, they could do anything.
Yeah, there's
which is very Europe. If you've ever been to Europe, you go to Paris, you just watch the nightly news, and then there's a commercial with a dick in it. You're like, okay, Europe.
Fun.
But yeah, so we finished that last night, and we're going to start the American version soon. But we also watched Unfrosted, the Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie on Netflix. I had very high hopes for this, okay? I went into this movie with a smile on my face and hope in my heart because, A, I love Pop-Tarts. They're like one of my top 5 favorite foods of all time. B, I still love Jerry, even though he's saying just boomery, problematic shit every day about comedy and being famous and rich.
Which, it's so funny that he's complained about not being able to be edgy in comedy when his comedy has been as edgy as a marble. He is not an edgy comic. Like, right? I don't understand what he's so desperate to say that he's never been able to say before, but I'm a little worried.
I think with a lot of people his age, especially comedians, they still believe in, like, classes, you know? Like, he wants to make fun of certain classes of people. And we just don't do that anymore. And it's not that you can't. If you write a funny joke and it's funny and it makes people laugh, it's a good joke. It's allowed. Yeah. It's great. Time and place, punching up. It's all like there are key factors. It's almost like a mathematical equation. There are key factors in writing a good joke, but you can make a joke about anything if it's funny and it makes sense. But you can't just call someone like an R slur and make fun of them for being in a wheelchair. You know, you can't do that anymore. And I think that's what a lot of those old comedians want to do.
Well, and as much as, you know, other comedians that have kind of walked this same path in a different way have complained about how, once we hit a certain point, we are unrelatable. Like what Kevin Hart's had a bit about being unrelatable. Ellen DeGeneres has had a bit about being unrelatable. I don't really think it did them any favors, but at least it seemed to have more self-awareness.
Yeah. Like Ellen did a whole special about how she was like too rich to do things now. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's why we don't really like you anymore.
Right? And like the Seinfeld press circuit around this whole thing has just been so weird because it's like he's just complaining. And fun fact, no one asked. Like, and seriously, for him to come out the gate complaining and kind of just turning himself into a silenced victim 2 weeks before his movie comes out, that didn't do his movie any favors.
Well, it's like we said, like the movie is so bad, and I think he knew that, and so he had to divert the narrative to, you know, kids these days, I can't say anything and get away with it because that way people don't comment and review his movie terribly because it's awful.
And it's such a bummer. It's just bursting with talent. And
yeah, it's jam-packed with all your favorite stars.
And they have absolutely nothing to do.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I went into it so excited, because it had a lot of my favorite people. Like, I love Melissa McCarthy, Amy Schumer. I love Jerry Seinfeld. Like, Seinfeld is one of my top 5 sitcoms that like shaped the way I am, you know. He was very much my comedy aesthetic growing up. And so I went into it hoping that it would be good. And yeah, like we said, so many stars, jam-packed. He did that thing where like even the extras, the one-liner people, the walk-ons were all celebrities.
Yeah.
Like he booked everyone famous, and it had the potential to be so funny. And Jerry even kind of said it himself. He wanted to make a movie about a product that was like opposite of Barbie, and it was like, yeah, not successful and not good.
Yeah, not fun to watch. Like
Yeah.
you found a way to do the anti-Barbie.
Yeah, it is funny that Mark Ronson did the theme song for both, though.
Yeah, no. Mark Ronson though? Like it's funny 'cause I didn't love the song at the end of Unfrosted either, but
It's not good.
but like even Mark Ronson has a few duds in him. But yeah, like it's funny because as a producer, I think Mark Ronson can typically do no wrong. I love him.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
Well, and I thought it was funny too because we're listening to it and I was like, is this Meghan Trainor? And so then we like fast forwarded to the end of the credits where they show all the songs,
And it's
it was like,
performed
yep.
by Meghan Trainor and Jimmy Fallon.
And Jimmy Fallon, who's not even in the film at all.
Yeah.
Neither of them are. It's just randomly. But then they did like a weird music video over the credits of everyone in the movie lip syncing to this terrible song. What was it? Heat in Your Heart or something?
It's morning. Hot
Heat?
morning heat or something like
Something-
that.
I don't know.
But it's funny, and like not to totally just pile on, but like it's funny because the music video at the end of a movie, it can be super fun. I mean, Build Me Up Buttercup is the example of how to do that at the end of There's Something About Mary.
Yeah.
Like that is the way. This did not. I mean, it was fun to see some of the cameo people who clearly had like a 4-hour time on set, to do their scene, have a little bit of fun, and then leave. But it was funny because at the very end, and I get that you'd want to end the song with like your director and star in the forefront. It's Jerry in the center with dancers on stairs or whatever. And like he's like, he does like a kind of thing, I guess, at the end, and his face looks dead inside. Like
Yeah.
they should have done another take because that's how the movie ends, and he looks like he is over it at that point. But also, I mean, there's one thing I've learned from Unfrosted. It is that Jerry is probably. Now I'm looking back, I'm like, he was the least interesting part of Seinfeld, honestly. Like, he's probably the least, the worst performer or actor of all of them.
It's like the Sex and the City effect.
Or even
Carrie's the least interesting of all the
right,
characters.
or Orange is the New Black. Piper was not interesting. However, I'm glad that they used Piper as sort of a spine of the show to tell more interesting and diverse stories.
Yeah.
Like if that's what we had to use as a springboard to get all of these women's stories, so be it. And if anything, like I'm just glad we got Elaine out of the whole deal. Like just Elaine is perfect out of Seinfeld. And
Yeah.
I really do think, like, especially looking back, her and George, like, I love how their careers have gone off anyway. And, but also I think they were really, honestly, the more compelling characters in retrospect.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the most successful industry person. Well, when it comes to like, she's won the most awards. She's had the most hit shows after Seinfeld. Like,
Seriously, she earned every one of those accolades. She is fantastic.
she's just naturally God-gifted funny.
Yeah. I love her.
Her and Catherine O'Hara need to do something together.
Oh my God,
They
I
would be
love
so funny
that.
off of each other.
That would be so fun. That's a sister movie I want to see.
Right? They could totally be sisters.
That would be so fun.
Oh, I would love that. But anyway, back to Unfrosted. Like I said, it had the potential to be so funny. It feels like they wanted to make an airplane style movie where literally every line is a joke. But that comes and goes. Like sometimes every line in a scene will be a pun or a joke, and then they'll go to a scene where it's just people talking, and they dropped that whole what's it called? Effect? Not effect. Who knows words.
I mean, it's funny because like I feel like 30 Rock was such a great example of how you can throw jokes at people a mile a minute, and they can, some land, some don't, but you just keep it moving, and they work. But yeah, this just this movie really made me want a bowl of cereal, though. It's funny. It didn't make me want Pop-Tarts. It made me want to have a bowl of cereal.
Well, because the first half of the movie is all cereal.
Yeah,
most of the movie is cereal because it's about Kellogg's and Post.
And I love cereal. So yeah, I was just like, ooh, there's a box of Reese's Puffs in the cabinet calling my name.
Well, and that's the thing too. A big storyline of Seinfeld, the TV show, was Jerry loves cereal. He's always loved cereal. He's always a morning kid. Like cereal box, he loves the graphic design of cereal boxes. Like cereal is a big through line of the TV show Seinfeld. And it almost feels like on set one day in 1998, he was like, we should make a movie about cereal. And then it finally happened. And it's like, it's just such a bummer.
Well, and I guess I never really thought about how old he is when I was growing up. I think I always assumed he was like a Gen Xer type. I didn't realize he was a full boomer, when it comes to his age group, more or less. And so, yeah, it makes sense that he kind of grew up in this sort of 60s idealized, nuclear family breakfast cereal kind of thing. And so this feels like a very comforting place for him to go to, which makes absolute sense. And I never really computed it though. And also it's funny that in the movie he's meant to have like kids that are still going to college, and he looks like a 70-year-old man who dyes his hair.
Well, also like he's always been obsessed with 1950s Americana. Like he's obsessed with Superman. He's obsessed with comic books. Like he's obsessed with Howdy Doody and all this stuff from the 50s and 60s. He very clearly loved his childhood, and like, so he went back to that. But
I look at the 90s with very rose tinted glasses, but and they weren't super turbulent, I suppose. But like, the 90s weren't perfect either. But it was our youth. And, I think that was great, but,
Well, and like I said, I was very excited about it because on paper it sounds great. And I think he sold it in the room just by talking about it. Like, you're Jerry Seinfeld, so you already have a lot of clout. We'll probably, especially Netflix, like, hello, thank you for calling Netflix. You're greenlit.
What's your idea? Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure Jerry took a meeting at Netflix. He was like, hey, I want to make a movie about the dawn of Pop-Tarts, but I want to make it airplane-y and highly stylized and funny. And they're like, great, done. And then he was like, now I got to write a script. And he had co-writers. I don't know where they came from. They did not help at all. And I don't know how much they were allowed to help, because there were maybe like 5 or 6 jokes in the movie that were kind of cutting edge and funny and modern. And I was like, somebody changed that probably while they were filming, probably Melissa McCarthy. Like that was the other thing. I love her so much. I wanted this to succeed for her,
Yeah, it
and,
really.
I bet she like improv'd a lot of her lines and a lot of her reactions because they were actually funny. But I will say one glowing review is there's 2 kids in the movie that play like dumpster divers. They're very funny.
And they were both. It was their first role for both of them. They were introduced,
and they are hilarious. Like these are 2 of the funniest, most talented kids. I think they're both like 8. They're the funniest 8-year-olds I've ever seen in my life. I have a feeling that we witnessed the dawn of like huge comedic lifelong careers from these 2 kids. Hopefully they get booked beyond this movie. Hopefully people don't just see Unfrosted and say, no, we're not even going to let them audition, because these kids were so good.
Well, and honestly, every scene they were in, they absolutely stole, and every word they uttered was whip crack smart.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I'm glad you brought them up, actually, because I keep wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And honestly, they were really a highlight.
They really reminded me of the 2 kids from Talladega Nights.
Which I've never seen that.
Another one you've never seen?
Well, we've talked about this. I'm not a Will Ferrell fan necessarily.
I know, but I feel like, how did you escape the early 2000s without seeing every Will Ferrell movie?
Easy.
You were in college. Like,
yeah.
I feel like we watched that movie in the dorms.
Old School was the last
That's
for me.
the one we watched in the dorms.
Although, years later, somebody sat me down and made me watch Anchorman, which I loved.
It's great.
Yeah, Anchorman was hilarious. Sorry, continue. About Talladega Nights.
But yeah, there's 2 kids in Talladega Nights. We need to watch that now because it is really funny, and I want to see if it holds up, which I think it probably will. I don't remember there being any like F slurs or anything in it, so hopefully it holds up. But I mean, I quote it daily. I quote that movie constantly.
I think it might have been another one of those where I was like, "Oh, it's about is that NASCAR?"
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care about the topic, but I mean, I don't have to care about the topic to enjoy the movie if it's well done. I mean, Any Given Sunday is proof of that. Like, I really liked that movie, and I could not give 2 shits about football. I just don't care.
Well, that's the thing too about Talladega Nights. It's about NASCAR, but it's clearly making fun of NASCAR while being about NASCAR, and like real NASCAR people participated in it.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like, what this Pop-Tart movie should have been. Also, Pop-Tart had no say in the script. Jerry didn't even ask Pop-Tarts if he could make this movie. Like, I don't know how they legally cleared all of the brand names, but
they didn't, from what I hear. From what I've heard, he in interviews has said, I didn't clear anything, and I look forward to getting sued, in a fairly antagonistic kind of way. At least that's me reading headlines and stuff, and I'm like,
that's so weird,
right? That's a weird thing to do, and honestly, like, if I were Kellogg's, I'd be a little upset about some brand tarnishing by this lackluster movie.
Well, I mean, Kellogg's has bigger fish to fry. They've already tarnished their own brand this year.
They've got problems this year. Never mind, I forget about the other problems they're having.
Cereal for dinner did not work out for them at all.
Let them eat cereal.
Yeah. Well, That was our movie review of Unfrosted. Speaking of eating, I think we should move on to our final segment, huh? Which is, what's your order? What's your order? Oh, I have here our trusty dusty blue Rip and Dip shoebox filled with America's favorite restaurants. It started as all fast food. We got through the fast food. I think there's one fast food restaurant left in here. The
One
rest are all
lurking.
fast casual. But yeah, we're going to pick a restaurant out of the box and say what our order is there. So, Robbie, I picked last week, so you picked this week. This week's What's Your Order restaurant is...
Got stuck in the box. Applebee's.
Yeah! I just edited out a very large cough, if you're wondering why we just jumped in sound. Anyway, Applebee's. I was an Apple buddy. I worked there for... Oh, God. I think I worked there a year before I moved to LA, and then I worked there for a year. I transferred. So the only Applebee's in Los Angeles, in Chatsworth, California, the porn capital of the world, and Applebee's in Los Angeles.
I'm going to need your help on this one, I think, but we can get through it.
Okay. But yeah, I worked at Applebee's. I was an Apple buddy. I did get fired for pretty much running a coupon scam ring. I don't know if the statute of limitations is up for that yet, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I did get fired from Applebee's in Chatsworth. And then it went out of business like a month later. I think it's reopened now, but it closed for a very long time. So, ha ha. But yeah, I enjoyed my time at Applebee's. Growing up, Applebee's was like one of my favorite quote unquote restaurants. Whenever we like went on vacation or road trip or anything, I loved the neon. I love a good flair restaurant, like I love nailing an antique to a wall. I'm going to come to your restaurant.
Well, and
much like we talked about Cracker Barrel, I very much love an antique nailed to a wall.
Well, and wasn't it your first job in LA? So you kind of made a lot of your friend group through there at first?
Yes. My first job in LA for 3 months was doing background professionally on TV shows and movies. And I could not take that anymore after 90 days. So after I went home for Christmas, I came back and then I transferred to Applebee's. And I made like my first best friends of LA. They taught me the city. They taught me pretty much Los Angeles etiquette. Like as rough as that job was and as much trauma as I have from working at that job, I made some really great friends, and it made me fall in love with California and fall in love with LA.
Well, and when you move to LA the first time and you actually don't move to LA proper and you move to the Valley, you need somebody to let you know that your experience is not necessarily the Los Angeles experience.
Yeah.
Because I knew a lot of people who moved to LA from New York and they were like, I hate it here. And I was like, it's because you live in Simi Valley.
Deep Valley.
Or just wherever. It's because you don't live in Los Angeles. Of course, you're driving an hour and a half to get to work in Beverly Hills because you didn't do your research. And just because it's all connected, it's not one place. Like, this is a very, very, very big county for you to be in. You can't cast you can't use a really wide brush to paint Los Angeles because it's so bunch of little neighborhoods. It's very divided in a way.
Yeah. When I first moved to LA in 2006, I lived in Sherman Oaks. And then, I worked in Chatsworth, which is about 45 minutes away from Sherman Oaks via traffic. It's probably only like 10 miles, but 45 minutes.
That's LA for you though.
North. It's like northwest of LA proper. And, so it's funny. My first initial introduction really to LA was working in the Deep Valley up in Chatsworth. But luckily, other people that worked there lived in Hollywood and stuff. Like, I still can't believe that people drove over an hour to commute to work at Applebee's. But there was a lot of people that lived in like Hollywood and worked at that Applebee's. And so that's how I learned the city. And that's how I learned the beaches and the mountains and everything, was from working at that Applebee's.
Sorry, before we get into your order, this is one little tangent I have to say because this is fascinating to me because, I'd like to consider myself a fairly smart guy, but I don't necessarily think about why a lot of things are the way they are. And also, my experience is limited, so I recognize I don't know stuff. Like, for example, I thought reindeer weren't real for a very long time. He had to tell me that reindeer were actually real animals.
You thought they were a fictional device made up to write stories.
Yeah. I thought they were like a unicorn kind of thing. It's just like, well, it's like a deer, but it's a magical deer. I had no idea. But like similarly, I've never actually worked food service. Ever. I've only worked retail. And so I forget why we brought this up, but I did not realize why at the end of the day restaurants put their chairs on the table. I thought it was to tell people not to sit there. I thought it was literally like, we're closed. There's no chair for you. Go home. And then he told me, no, it's so they can mop, like without hitting a bunch of chair legs. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But it's funny, like it's that kind of stuff where I'm always like, ooh, like I eat up his past restaurant working stories because I've learned so much. I had no idea, but like I literally wasn't looking past the tip of my nose when it came to any of that kind of stuff. I wasn't thinking it through.
You were like 30% correct though. It is a way to like close sections of restaurants. It is a way to tell people from the outside that the restaurant is closed or closing. Like,
I mean, it's a very good, kind of beacon to be like, no.
I see. My biggest pet peeve with putting chairs on tables, besides the fact that like,
butt thing on top of table now.
There you go. I hate like. And I hate when people put the floor part. So, like, there's two ways to put a chair on a table, obviously. You put the butt part touching the table, or you can just put the chair up on the table and then stack the other chairs on that chair. Either way, the floor is getting on the table or butt juice is getting on the table. And I've been to several restaurants where I know they did not wipe down that table after they took the chairs down. It's just something that skips people's mind. So I am very much not a fan of putting chairs on tables because it's just gross. But I also am a very... clean eater and a very picky clean eater. So I think of like cross-contamination constantly.
Yeah.
And sanitation. That's my biggest part of eating food and working in the kitchen and stuff like that. Is just, I see all the little like sanitation, not misdemeanors. I cannot think of words today. Whatever.
But sanitation faux pas,
yes,
we'll call them.
Exactly. But all right. Well, sorry. Applebee's.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing at Applebee's is the quesadilla burger. It is a deliciously seasoned burger made with pico de gallo, Mexi ranch, which is ranch mixed with salsa. And we made it in house. You literally just put salsa in ranch and then it's Mexi ranch. But yeah, cheddar cheese, or maybe like a Mexican blend of cheese, pico de gallo, Mexi ranch, lettuce. And then it's kind of like, it's pretty much a quesadilla. It's made between two tortillas, grilled and then cut in half, and that's the quesadilla burger.
That sounds delicious.
Seasoned fries. Applebee's, at least when I worked there, Applebee's had the best seasoned fries. They were so delicious. But yeah, I could tear up a quesadilla burger. They're so good.
I would be a customizer who removes the Mexi ranch, but that does sound delicious still.
Yeah, because you don't like anything that's good.
I don't like ranch. Like as a non-Midwesterner, like at least I think that's the only reason why I can justify that. I've never developed a taste for ranch.
Yeah. But then the other thing I would get, because in college, so like when I was in college, Applebee's had half price appetizers after 9 p.m. So, and this was the 90s, or I guess early 2000s because I was 21. But like,
it's like happy after hours.
Yeah, it was late night happy hour. And so we would get out of like play rehearsal or just like pregame before going to a party. But we would go get like a basket of wings and a beer, literally for like $7 total at Applebee's, and you could just get half price apps. But the apps were my favorite thing. So Applebee's also has a really delicious appetizer sampler, which comes with like boneless buffalo wings, I think cheese sticks, spinach dip with tortilla chips, and then something else. There was a fourth thing.
Did they have a fried egg roll that was filled with avocado?
No, that's CPK.
Okay.
Which, that's my literally favorite dish at California Pizza Kitchen is the avocado egg rolls because they have the best ranch. But yeah, the appetizer sampler at Applebee's is such a delight. I love their spinach dip. It's so good. I love a good, corn chip dipped in spinach dip. That's such a good way to eat it. And then, yeah, like I said, cheese sticks. I love a good cheese stick. Ranch and marinara because I'm a saucy gal. You give me a sauce, I'm going to dip something in it.
That is true.
So when was the last time you ate at an Applebee's?
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, my Applebee's experience, I believe, is mostly limited to when I was not old enough to drink. Because I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18 and there's no Applebee's in LA proper. So I'd say there was a good 20 years there where I never went to one. So
did they have them in Palmdale?
Yes, there was one in Palmdale. However, it was like you could see Chili's from Applebee's. So it was one of those of like, you're just going to go to Chili's.
There is a lot of brand loyalty there. Like
yeah.
People are very much a Chili's loyalist.
And Applebee's was a late addition to Palmdale. So like, yeah, I grew up with like Chili's and just a handful of other kind of places along those lines. And then across the street, an Applebee's opened. And it was like a novelty for a minute. But for the most part, I think we always ended up at Applebee's, like, yeah, after a play or after a concert, like I was in band, so after like one of our concerts or after prom, if Denny's was booked, it was all full. You go to Applebee's instead, and of course, as a teenager, you get shit service because they think you're not going to tip. And it was one of those of just like you can't really take advantage of what Applebee's is meant to be, which is that neighborhood bar and grill.
Yeah.
And so like there was a lot of, I think it was just I don't think I ever really got to fully appreciate what Applebee's does.
Yeah.
Because it's like going to Vegas when you're under 21. It's like, well, the roller coasters are cool, but like other than that,
not much to do.
So but yeah, if any, you're not gonna be surprised at all by this. If memory serves, they had some sort of not great Alfredo dish.
Oh,
that had broccoli in it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just broccoli Alfredo.
Yeah, I think so. And I want to say that's what I always got. I was never super pleased with it, but also every single time I sit down at a restaurant, even if I'm going to a steakhouse, I'm going to get a steak. As soon as I see pasta on the menu, I'm like, ooh, pasta.
Yeah.
I just can't turn down a carb. And so I want to say I probably got that every single time. And then did it come with garlic bread?
Yeah.
Because I remember, I will, if it comes to garlic bread, I'm probably ordering it.
Which Applebee's has the Texas toast we get from the freezer section. Just that like oval shaped, thick Texas toast.
And I want to say I'd eat everybody else's too. Like if anyone's getting bread, I'm probably taking it. So yeah, I believe that was basically my order from Applebee's because and then of course probably some sort of fried cheese, appetizer-y, bar food. But yeah, I think it was almost always without fail the broccoli Alfredo.
Yeah. That's so funny because Applebee's is the first time I ever saw a melted butter rolling machine. I don't know if you've ever seen one.
No, but that sounds amazing
it's
already.
It's like you take like a square hotel pan, which is like the stainless steel, what usually like salad dressing and stuff is on a salad bar. So you take out like one of those hotel pans, you put clarified butter in it, and then it literally looks like a hamster wheel that you put in the thing, and when you spin it, it picks up just enough melted clarified butter to butter your bread. So you spin it a couple times, and then you roll the bread over it, and that's how you butter your toast for the Texas toast. And it's one of those simple, like, ancient machines that I never knew existed. And once I saw it, I was like, I want a butter roller hamster wheel.
It's like a conveyor belt toaster. They are so much more interesting to me than a pop-up toaster, which, of course, I grew up with a pop-up toaster, Yeah. But, like,
and it's funny, the first conveyor belt toaster I ever saw was at Emo's in St. Louis, which is my favorite pizza. Because that's how they cook their pizzas.
My first was in college at, like, our on-campus dining hall, so you could make your own toast. Like, you just put it on the little conveyor and then just watch it go whoop and slide down. It was so fun. Yeah. And that's why I realized, like, Domino's Pizza, same way, conveyor belt oven, where it's like they can just slow it down if they want it to cook longer. Oh, what? Like, I never thought about that, and it's incredible to me.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm craving Applebee's pretty much every episode. Whatever restaurant we talk about, I'm aggressively craving it,
which I feel like is a kind of cruel trick to do to you right now.
Yeah, especially since I'm trying to watch my calories. But someone said there is an Applebee's in like South Seattle. I haven't Googled it, but someone said there is an Applebee's up here, so we could make the trek.
I almost feel like we need to do like a suburban food tour kind of thing. It just feels
Well, we talk about it all the time with like Carl's Jr. There is one an hour away, so we'd have to eat it there, which you hate eating in fast food restaurants.
I do.
And I don't want to eat it. I won't eat it in the car. So like, yeah, it's like there's a lot of work trying to get to like the restaurants we love because Seattle has nothing.
Yeah, I think like the last time we went to that Carl's Jr., I went by myself and I ate in the car while getting an oil change.
Yeah. It's not fair. How are we going to live in the most expensive city and also not have good things? That's frustrating. But so that's Applebee's. My long torrid past with Applebee's. But yeah, I love it so much. I got to get a quesadilla burger in me ASAP.
Well, I feel like we may have to make one at home. Just, do a home dupe. It doesn't sound that hard.
And it's not like when people are like, oh, we're going to make Big Macs at home. And then it tastes nothing like a Big Mac. Like Applebee's burgers are really easy to make at home because it's just salt and pepper on a burger. And then it's literally just ranch and salsa. It's not hard to do.
And honestly, as the worst Mexican in America, I've actually never even made pico de gallo, which I should just learn to make.
It's like the easiest condiment to make.
Yeah, like I've actually never made my own salsa ever, and like I love making tortillas. Like there's a lot of stuff I do that I've learned how to make in the last couple of years. But yeah, salsa's not one of them I've ever done, and I don't know why.
Well, one of the main reasons we don't make a lot of stuff we like is because it's just us, and it's usually for one meal. And it's so hard to make enough pico de gallo for one meal.
Yeah.
Like usually you make enough for like a party, or like, your whole family is going to eat with you, like, or you're going to have it for 3 meals in a row.
Right.
Like, it's one of those things, kind of like we discussed with making dupes at home. It's not really worth it to make the dupe. Just buy it.
Unless you're doing it at scale. Like, just for an army.
But
then it works.
Apropos?
Sure.
I don't even know. It's Cinco de Mayo today as we record.
So, hey, that's fine. I didn't even realize. Like, and we're talking about quesadilla burgers and stuff.
We'll probably celebrate by going to Chipotle. But hey, you know what? A win is a win. All right, we're celebrating the holiday of your people.
Anything wrapped in a tortilla is a win.
Exactly. But all right. Well, Rob, thanks for joining me from the start.
Hey, thank you for having me.
This is going to make editing so much easier. So I think from now on, it'll just be the Gay Fat Friend and Rob podcast.
Our Gay Fat Friend and other.
But
other. It will be me for a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just going to be so much easier to just have Rob from the start, which, such is life. I should have had Rob from the start.
Gaw.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Let me know what your order is at Applebee's. If you still have an Applebee's, I feel like they're America's favorite restaurant to close. So you may have had one near your home and it went out of business. But yeah, tell me all about your Applebee's stories. And
let me know how that broccoli Alfredo is still.
Yeah, it's got to still be on the menu. It's like one of the only things children eat.
Wow.
Yeah. Having said that, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And we'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye.